things went terribly wrong. In 1992, Pepsi ran a contest in the Philippines that ended up killing 5 people. The contest was called Number Fever, and the idea was simple. Every evening, the news would reveal a winning number.
Tomorrow's winning number is 373.
And if you had a Pepsi bottle cap with that number, you won $1 million pesos.
When you watch a contest like this, people miss that it's not about giving money away. It's about pushing millions of people to buy the same product over and over and over again, fast. The prize is just the hook. Demand is the payoff.
Now, $1 million pesos in 1992 was life-changing for the average Filipino. So this contest became very popular.
Will you be the next millionaire?
Families would stockpile Pepsi bottle caps in their homes. Many people would root through dumpsters trying to find winning caps. According to Pepsi, half of the country's population was actively participating in the contest.
You're watching a moment where one number could outweigh years of non-stop work in a country where most people barely get by. That's why it didn't feel like a gamble. It felt like the only way out. What's easier to miss here is that relief felt close enough to touch, and that changes everything. At that point, it's not greed. It's people chasing peace from lives that never slow down.
And it was because of this popularity that Pepsi decided to extend Number Fever for an additional 5 weeks. And this is where things went terribly wrong. You see, throughout the contest, Pepsi was in complete control of how many winners there were. They relied on a computer program to seed 2 winning caps into bottling plants.
You'd assume a contest like this tells you how winners are picked, but legally, companies don't have to. As long as the rules exist on paper, the process itself stays invisible to the public.
2 winning caps meant that there could only be 2 winners, and Pepsi would stay within their budget. But something went wrong after they extended the contest. The computer program glitched, causing some numbers to be mixed up. And on May 25th, 1992, at 6 p.m., the Channel 2 Evening News called the winning number 349.
At this point, all the risk is already baked in. When you centralize something this big into one system, every decision flows through the same bottleneck, and there's no human checkpoint to catch mistakes early. If any of you guys are wondering why this kind of system gets used at all, it's because of speed and control. One pipeline keeps things clean until the scale turns one mistake into something nobody could step in and stop.
And while there were only supposed to be 2 winners, hundreds of thousands of Filipinos began to celebrate. You see, 349 was already designated as a non-winning number, and because of this, bottling plants were free to print that number as much as they wanted. This resulted in over 600,000 349 caps circulating in the Philippines. 349 was such a common cap that many people had more than one.
You know what, guys? When hundreds of thousands of people suddenly win the same prize, that's not a miracle. That's a red flag. At that scale, the question stops being who won and starts being, how is this even allowed to happen?
That night, the streets went wild with celebration. They were all rich and could finally stop worrying about money. Hundreds of people rushed to the Pepsi factory with their winning caps. It soon had to be shut down and guarded by police. The company quickly realized that they had messed up big time. Pepsi executives had a meeting in the middle of the night to try and come up with a solution.
No cap, y'all. Their reaction makes total sense. When your whole block, your family, everybody around you swears they just got rich overnight, doubting it sounds irrational because belief is everywhere you look. This is where scale turns a mistake into an event. Internally, it's a technical problem. Externally, it's a broken promise already locked into the public's mind.
It would have cost them tens of billions of dollars to honor each winning cap. So instead, they put the blame on the computer and offered 500 pesos for each winning cap. Now, 500 pesos was only around $18. This was 0.05% of the original prize. And while some took them up on this offer, most refused and became even more angry.
See, this the part that really twists the knife. Once people believe they've won, that money already feels psychologically spent. And even if Pepsi had explained the computer system up front, the emotional crash would have still hit the sign, because expectations, once formed, doesn't weaken when you explain the system behind it.
They didn't care about some computer error. Pepsi was a multi-billion-dollar corporation. In their eyes, they had to honor the full prize amount. But Pepsi didn't budge, and violent protests and riots broke out, ultimately leaving 5 people dead and dozens injured.
Financially, Pepsi was trapped the second those caps exploded in number. Here's the reality. Paying everyone the full price wasn't just expensive, it was mathematically impossible without collapsing the company. And honestly, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but even if Pepsi had money, paying the full price would have changed everything. Because the moment they pay, those caps stop being a mistake and start becoming a recognized liability.
349 winners stormed the Pepsi factories, throwing Molotov cocktails into the windows and bombing Pepsi trucks that drove by. Over the next year, the angry mob took a more organized approach to fight Pepsi. Coalition 349 was a group of winners that took legal action against the company. They elected a local preacher named Del Fierro as their leader. He rounded up over 800 349 winners in an attempt to sue Pepsi for over $400 million.
I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. A courtroom doesn't run on feelings, it runs on paperwork. If the rules don't legally say a cap equals a guaranteed payout, then what feels like a sure win becomes a fight over interpretation.
Now, the chaos continued well into 1993, at which point a new twist in the story started circulating. Old newspaper headlines suggested that Pepsi was somehow responsible for bombing their own trucks. These headlines were based on a testimony from a police officer.
Now you guys can see how stuff like this snowballs. When people sit in confusion, anger, and rumors for months, theories start feeling just as real as facts, especially when trust is already broken. Hold on now, that claim right there is something else entirely. Saying the company secretly fueled the chaos sounds even more unbelievable than the payout dispute itself. If that were true, you're not talking about a mistake anymore. You're talking about something far darker.
He alleged that in order to paint Coalition 349 as terrorist and damage their position in court, Pepsi hired mercenaries to infiltrate these groups and cause the riots. More testimonies surfaced of people claiming that Pepsi had paid them to start trouble and cause mayhem. A Pepsi lawyer quickly denied the allegations, and that was basically the end of it.
I get why that denial feels unsatisfying. But a lawyer saying no isn't what ends the case. The absence of hard proof does. Allegations alone don't survive in court. If investigators can't back it with verifiable evidence, the claim doesn't stand, no matter how convincing it sounds.
In 1993, the court finally put an arrest warrant out for 9 Pepsi executives. This was a huge win for Coalition 349, but unfortunately, it was one of their only. In the following months, almost all of the civil suits and criminal complaints were tossed out of court, and in 2006, the court officially closed the book on all of the remaining court cases.
What really stings is how long this stretched out. Cases like this don't just end. They wear people down financially, socially, and emotionally. By the time it's over, even staying in the fight can cost more than what most people can survive. Dog. This sucks for a lot of families. This felt like their one real shot at a different life. And watching that hope drag through court for years had to be exhausting. Wins start feeling meaningless when nothing actually changes.
They found that Pepsi had not been negligent in the number fever disaster. When it was all said and done, Pepsi only had to pay one small fine of 150,000 pesos. Many Filipinos who experienced number fever are still traumatized to this day. Even mentioning the word Pepsi around certain groups is frowned upon.
Believe it or not, guys, a moment like this doesn't just end in court. It rewires how people trust brands forever. When a company walks away with a tiny fine, it tells regular people the promise was optional, and the system will always side with the company.
Pepsi was recently asked for their response to the number fever disaster, and they came out with this statement. These events took place almost 30 years ago, and none of the executives familiar with this program are at PepsiCo anymore.
Before this lesson ends, think about how a single-digit, managed to shake an entire country, not because of the number itself, but because of what people believed it meant. Crazy thing is, the number faded, but the memory didn't. For a lot of people, 349 stopped being a cap. It became a reminder of how fragile trust really is.
We deeply regret any pain and suffering our mistake caused the people of the Philippines.